Grab your friends, wear your florals, let's talk about this. As said by Blake Lively, who plays the main character in this movie called It Ends With Us. Originally, this was a story published by Colleen Hoover back in 2016, and I think it's one of her most popular books. So I've read it, and I've watched the movie as well. First of all, I want to say that it is so important to talk about domestic violence, and the fact that this book is so popular and now the movie is popular, I feel like it helped and it's going to help so many people out there to get out of abusive situations, and I truly love the message of this book. I think the movie was good as well. They cut out a lot of the scenes from the book, but honestly, I cannot even be mad about it because I feel like if it would be so extreme as in the book, there would be women or men who would think, oh, my situation is not that bad, so it's not really abusive. So I cannot be really mad about that either. I'm not sure if you know, but there's been a lot of drama surrounding the press and how the movie is being presented. And I must say that even though I've been part of the book community for years, I always thought that Colleen Hoover writes romance, and this book is also a romance book, and clearly it's not. And also the movie itself is not being marketed as a domestic violence film either, and I don't really know how that's good. Is it because like they want to get more people to go to the cinema or more people to read the book? Anyways, so I've read the book as well, and some of the scenes and characters' behavior has been a choice. Let's talk about it. In the first scene, the main character called Lily Bloom, that also likes gardening and flowers, meets a man that is riled up as he is beating up a couple of marine polymer chairs. That is very important because they're very durable, and they start talking. This guy is named Ryle. He is a neurosurgeon who is only roughly 30 years old, and I'm like, that's interesting because I don't think that Colleen Hoover knows for how many years doctors study to actually become a neurosurgeon. And that's the reason why they aged up the characters a little bit in the movie, but I feel like she would be one Google search away from finding that out, but okay. They start talking and they exchange these brutal facts called naked truths, and every single time they have a serious conversation in the book, it always has to start with naked truth this, naked truth that. So they start sharing information, and Lily talks about her father's funeral and how she didn't have anything good to say about him. Sometimes he would buy me stuff because he knew I hated it when they fought. When I was a kid, I found myself looking forward to the nights they would fight because I knew if he hit her, the 2 weeks that followed would be great. I feel like this is not something that should be talked about on a balcony with a random guy. This should be talked about in a therapist's office, but interesting. And then he also talks about a surgery at the hospital and how this little boy died after he was shot by his little brother. And he says that, oh, it's going to ruin the rest of his life, which is foreshadowing. He also talks about how he never wants to have a relationship, he never wants to have kids, he never wants to get married. So then they exchange more and more information, and she says, tell me the most recent thought you've had that most people wouldn't say out loud. He pulls his hand up behind his head and looks me straight in the eye. I want to you. My goodness. My mouth falls open, then I clamp it shut again. I think I might be speechless. He shoots me a look of innocence. You asked for the most recent thought, so I gave it to you. You're beautiful, I'm a guy. If you were into one night stands, I would take you downstairs to my bedroom and I would fuck you. Great. They had such a good, meaningful conversation up until this point. And then he pushes the boundaries. He's like, oh, how far would you go? Because she says that she's not really into one night stands. They kiss or something. I don't even know. And then he takes a photo of her in one of these polymer chairs. Marine polymer, I shouldn't forget that. Again, very important. 6 months later, Lily opens her new flower shop, and on the first day, this woman walks in that is dressed in very expensive clothes, and she's called Elisa, and she asks for a job. Elisa says that she really likes Pinterest. And then there's this line in the book: I'm convinced I've met my best friend, and she really is a Pinterest. Interesting choice of words again. One thing that is really important is that when Lily was younger and all of this abuse was going on, she was writing a diary that was addressed to Ellen DeGeneres because she loved her show so much. So whenever she talks about these really heavy, traumatic situations, it always starts with, "Dear Ellen, here's what happened." She also meets this 18-year-old dude that is homeless and just resides in this abandoned house across the street, and she starts helping him. They get close. So then her mom just got hit. "You should go," he whispered. "We could both see my mom standing in my bedroom looking at me." It wasn't until the moment that I realized what a perfect view he has of my bedroom. As I walked back home, I tried to think about the entire time Atlas has been in that house. I tried to recall if I'd walked around after dark with the light on at night, because all I normally wear in my room at night is a t-shirt. Here's what's crazy about that, Ellen. I was kind of hoping I had. So her mom just got hit, and all she thinks about is if this dude has seen her only with a shirt on. Great. Okay, so then we cut back to the present, and oh god. Turns out Ryle is actually Elisa's brother, and Ryle is trying to find her. He has no idea where, he only knows her building, and once he finds her, he begs her on his knees to sleep with him. Because he needs to have a one night stand with her and then he can forget her. Okay, that's like his thought process. And Lily accepts it because he's wearing this dirty hospital scrubs that probably has tons of blood and brain juices on it, and she finds it incredibly hot. I closed the door behind me, wondering how in the hell this guy talked me into this. It's the scrubs. The scrubs are my weakness. It has nothing to do with him. I wonder if there's a way he could leave them on during the sex. Oh goodness, it must be so dirty and disgusting and sweaty, and she finds it so hot. But then he falls asleep and nothing happens. So then Elisa has a birthday party, and Lily comes with a friend of hers. And Ryle gets super jealous, so he tosses his empty wine glass toward a trash can in the corner of the room. Why would you? I cannot imagine. Like, he's just having a wine glass, and instead of like putting it on the counter, anything, he just throws it into the trash can. He makes the shot, but the glass shatters when it hits the bottom of the empty container. I glance around me, but no one saw what just happened. Then we learn that he has a photo of her in his apartment. That's right, the photo he took of her the very first night they have met. He like distorted it a little bit, and he made an artwork out of it. Then he comes up to her, scoops her up, and carries her to his bedroom. And she asks him to not sleep together because she wants to try a relationship instead. Then there's this flashback with Atlas, and they are gardening, and they talk about the plants and how they're similar to humans, and it's actually really nice scene because they talk about how she likes gardening because if you put enough care, then the plants will reward you with some vegetables, and if you don't take care of them, they will die. And then Atlas starts to wipe cow shit on her. when he was wiping that cow shit on me, it was quite possibly the most turned on I've ever been. And they say that poop fetish is uncommon. Well, here's the thing, like every single flashback is just addressed to Ellen DeGeneres, right? And oh god, it says, Ellen, I don't even want to describe what happened next. I'm still a little shocked by the whole thing. I opened the garage door and didn't see my mom. I just saw my dad behind the car doing something. I took a step closer and realized why I couldn't see my mom. He had her pushed down on the hood with his hands around her throat. He was choking her, Ellen. I cannot take this seriously. If this is addressed to Ellen DeGeneres, I can't. Also, they changed this in the movie because I think Lily's father hurt her as well, and she had to get stitches and she had to cover for him in the hospital because her father was this respectable mayor of the town and nobody could knew that he's actually an abuser. Cut back to the present time. After they decide that they will not sleep together and just have a relationship first, couple of days later, guess what happens? Yeah, they sleep together. And the amount of uncomfortable sex scenes this book has is ridiculous. It's just the way it's written. It's like we have sentences like, he's unapologetic in the way he fucks me. Keep in mind, Raoul didn't really want a relationship, but after 5 days, he meets Lily's mother and they go to this restaurant. And guess what happens? This restaurant, which is called Best in Boston in the book, it's not called Roots like in the movie, is owned by Atlas himself. And she just cries because she hasn't seen Atlas in years. Also, Lily in the flashbacks is 15 years old and Atlas is 18 years old. And I have no idea why Colleen Hoover made that age gap, because all she had to do was just to make Lily, I don't know, I think it's like 17, 18. I'm not sure how much I should divulge here since you and I have never met in person. But let me just say that if he's ever wondered what my boobs feel like, now he knows. Dear Ellen, just keep swimming. Recognize the quote, Ellen? It's what Dory says to Marlin in Finding Nemo. The amount of times this book has the quote, just keep swimming, is outrageous. So then Atlas moved to Boston to live with his uncle because his mom kicked him out. I don't even remember what happened with his father, but yeah, that's like the only option he has. Dear Ellen, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. He's moving to Boston. I don't really feel like talking about it. Lily. Cut to present time. Lily is constantly sleeping with Ryle. There's a couple of scenes that includes doctor roleplay. Jail. Just jail. Then Ryle talks about this very important, very rare surgery. I get to perform a very rare, possibly once in a lifetime, craniophagus separation on Monday. A cranio what? He finishes off his glass of wine and pours himself another one. Craniophagus separation, conjoined twins, he says. He points to a spot on the top of his head and taps it. Attached right here. We've been studying them since they were born. It's a very rare surgery. Very rare. For the first time, I think I'm genuinely turned on by him as a doctor. Why is she turned on by the thought of him separating conjoined babies? Jail. Just jail. Oh, it's so hard. How are you going to separate the two babies? Oh my god. Right after this, they're baking something and Raoul grabs a hot pot with his hands, which, okay, he's a surgeon, by the way, like he needs to be careful about his hands, but oh well. So Lily laughs at the mess and Raoul thinks that she's laughing at how he has hurt his hands and pushes her and she hits her head badly. Of course, he then apologizes and he asks, are you okay? And he seems very remorseful. And then he sleeps with her to make it better. And he swears it will never happen again. But when Elisa asks about it, he lies. So he knows that he messed up, right? They go to a restaurant together, the Atlas's restaurant, and Atlas sees the bruise. And Atlas and Ryle get into a terrible fight and they are banned from the restaurant forever. Ryle also rants about how he didn't want any of this and how he didn't want a relationship, and it like indirectly blames Lily, I feel like. Then Atlas visits the flower shop and Elisa sees him and she talks about his eyes and how beautiful they are for like a paragraph. Did she forget that Lily is dating her brother or what? Atlas also puts his phone number into the phone case of Lily's phone. Then Lily goes and meets Ryle's parents, and she learns that they're very religious. Does she know we live together? I ask him. Is she okay with that? I mean, we aren't married. She goes to church every Sunday. Oh no, Ryle. What if your mother thinks I'm a blasphemous whore? Ryle nudges his head towards the apartment door and I spin around to see his mother standing in the doorway, a layer of shock on her face. Mother, Ryle says, meet Lily, my blasphemous whore. Great. After this, Elisa asks Lily if she would be interested in marrying Ryle, and of course she says yes, and Ryle overhears it, so they go to Vegas to get married. After 6 months, and on the plane to Vegas to get married, they have a serious conversation about their future for the first time ever. Like if Ryle actually wants to have kids with her, even though he previously said that he does not want to get married, doesn't want to have kids, but all of a sudden, he wants them. Are you sure about this, Ryle? He runs his hands through my hair and pulls my face to his, brushing his lips against mine. Naked truth, he whispers. I'm so excited to be your husband, I could piss my damn pants. After this, Ryle finds the phone number that was inside Lily's phone cover, and they get into a fight, and he throws her down the stairs and says that it was an accident. And he says how he did it because he loves her. He also hits his head against the door 3 times as they're speaking. Wonderful. And then he tells the story of his brother, which is that he accidentally shot his big brother with a gun when they were very little, and it scarred him for the rest of his life, and that's why he's now the way he is. He avoids intimacy, he doesn't want to get into a relationship. Also, he says that he tried to put everything back inside his brother's head. His name was Emerson, by the way. Like all the like brain pieces. So that's the reason why he became a neurosurgeon later, which is just so disturbing on so many levels. And Lily justifies it and compares how the situation is very different to the situation of her mother and her dad. So there's this paragraph, and I will read it word for word. I know Ryle has a temper. I saw it the first night we met, before we ever even spoke a word to each other. I saw it that awful night in my kitchen. I saw it when he found the phone number in my phone case. But I also see the difference between Ryle and my father. Ryle is compassionate. He does things my father never would have done. He donates to charity. He cares about other people. He puts me before everything. Ryle would never in a million years make me park in the driveway while he took the garage. And I can see why this passage is in here, because it talks about how even if somebody is very compassionate and is normally a good person, they also can be abusive to their significant other. I have to remind myself of those things. Sometimes the girl inside of me, the daughter of my father, is really opinionated. She tells me I shouldn't have forgiven him. She tells me I should have left the first time. And sometimes I believe their voice, but then the side of me that knows Ryle understands that marriages aren't perfect. Sometimes there are moments that both parties regret, and I wonder how I'd feel about myself had I just left him after that first incident. He never should have pushed me, but I also did things I wasn't proud of. And if I had just left, would that not be going against our marriage vows? For better or for worse, I refuse to give up on my marriage that easily. I'm a strong woman. I've been around abusive situations my whole life. I will never become my mother. I believe that 100%. And Raul will never become my father. I think we needed what happened on the stairwell to happen so that I would know his past and we'd be able to work on it together. Now, this is a passage that if you take it out of the context, it sounds really, really bad. I admit. It's just her rationalizing the abuse and how it's not that bad and it doesn't compare to how her mother was. But it was important to put it into the story because this is how every abuse victim thinks. They're like, I'm not going to give up on this. Like, we spent so much time together and he's probably a good person. It's just the bad moments that are extremely horrible, but other than that, everything is perfect, everything is great. This is the reason why so many domestic violence victims just stay in their relationship, because either they think they cannot do any better, or they think they deserved it, or that it was justified, they rationalize it. And in a way, I'm glad that Colleen Hoover put this passage in, even though I feel like it can be misunderstood. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because after the situation escalates even more, there's this passage. I think of all the people who have been in this situation before me, everyone who will be in this situation after me. Do we all repeat the same words in our heads in the days after experiencing abuse at the hands of those who love us? From this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, until death do us part. Maybe those vows weren't meant to be taken as literally as some spouses take them. For better, for worse, fuck that. So I already talked about how the situation escalates, but before that, Raul buys a very expensive apartment for them, and she doesn't really have to pay anything. And she's super excited. I must say that in toxic relationships or in abusive situations, a lot of the times after something horrible happens, the relationship always escalates to a new level. Like there's like big change, like an engagement, a wedding, a baby, a new apartment. So it makes sense. Also, Elisa gives birth to her baby, and Raul decides that he also wants to have children, even though we already talked about it on that flight to Vegas, so I'm confused how he made that decision. Maybe he decided that he's ready. I don't know. Then Raul finds this magnet that Atlas gave to her when they were young, and she still has it. He also finds all of the journals where she talks about Atlas and all of the abuse. And he also realizes that Atlas's name of the restaurant is a direct reference to Lily. He puts two and two together and he attacks Lily again, and he headbutts her, and she's just bleeding, just gushing out blood. She cannot even see for some moments, and she realizes that she has to leave. So she calls Atlas. They go to a hospital. She finds out she's pregnant already. And then Raul leaves for Cambridge or something to do some program. So she is just by herself trying to process this situation. She is still not fully sure if she wants a divorce or not, because now there's a baby involved. Her mom also talks about how it was very similar for her, because the first time Lily's father hit her, he was being remorseful and he promised it would never happen again, and then it escalated and it escalated, and then he beat her up, and then the next time he only slapped her, so that felt better because at least it wasn't like a full-on beating. And she talks about how in abusive relationships the level of tolerance is constantly being raised up and up and up, and it just escalates and escalates. And I'm really glad that this was included in the book as well. And then Lily has the baby, and as she is holding her in her arms, she decides that she wants to get a divorce and she separates from Raul. Also, they named this baby girl Emerson after Raul's older brother that he killed. And I'm like, great, is that a good idea? Because now every time Raul will look at his daughter, he will think about the brother he has killed. Like, is this really a good idea to do? So then a year later, she meets Atlas again, and she tells him that Emerson's middle name is Dory. after Dory from Nemo. Like, poor child. Just Emerson, Dory, Kincaid. Just why? Why does Colleen Hoover always chooses the most ridiculous names like Atlas? Colleen Hoover writes this tension and these manipulative characters extremely well, and I'm confused why she focuses on romance, because I feel like she would be much better off writing like psychological thrillers. I have read some of her books before, and I have a big issue with her characters because a lot of the men act exactly the same way as Ryle, but it is not being deemed as abusive, it's being seen as romantic. Only in this book it's labeled as abusive. Also, the book looks like a romance novel, so if you see this in the store, you think that you're picking up a cutesy, lovey-dovey romance, and then you'll be surprised that it's actually about domestic violence. And I'm not sure why her team or even the movie cast, except Justin Baldoni, makes it seem like this is just like some cute lovey-dovey story. Although the movie promotion receives tons of backlash, at least it's being talked about. That's it. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And if you want me to read the second book, I can do it. I can sacrifice myself. Please, no more cow shit. And please, no more naked truths. And please, no repetitive just keep swimming quotes. But I know I'm asking for too much. Anyways, that's it. Bye.